Welcome, everyone, to the PFF Fantasy Podcast, IDP edition. I am your host, Jon Macri, fantasy analyst here at PFF, and I am joined by the man known as the cornerback whisperer, but he's so much more than that, including a brilliant IDP mind and all-around great guy from IDP Guys, the IDP Show, SGPN Fantasy, and co-host of the IDPro Players Podcast, my guy, Johny the Greek. Johnny, what is up, my man?
Hey, Mr. Macri, good to see you, man. Look at you, big time doing PFF podcasts and whatnot. Crazy times.
Oh yeah. Look, I hope you like what I've done with the place since we last had a podcast together. We've moved on. I'm not the same, but yeah, doing more podcasts and talking offense as well. But happy to talk some IDP with you and kick it back to like a kind of a throwback, right? We got to do our monthly previews. I guess it was like a couple years ago now. Basically, it's been way too long either way. So I'm looking forward to doing another one of these things with you and getting you back on the show and previewing week 2 with me. So this is going to be fun.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it. We're into the swing of things. Yeah, let's get the people ready for a little week 2.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we actually have like 2023 data that we can utilize now and kind of comb through and see how these teams are actually deploying their IDPs, which is going to be cool. And we'll get to talk about it all here. We're going to go game by game again. So we're going to get into it. I do have to give a quick shout out to our presenting sponsor, Fabric by Gerber Life, before we start. Fall is all about the back to school and back to routine checklist, and the most important task on that list should be securing your family's financial future, starting with life insurance. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it quick, easy, and affordable to protect your family so you can get back to enjoying life. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to help you get a high-quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policy in less than 10 minutes. Fabric has flexible policies that fit your family and your budget with quality policies like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. Get your personalized quote in just minutes and then apply when it's convenient for you. It's all online and on your schedule. You can go from start to covered in less than 10 minutes with no health exam required. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/fantasy. That's meetfabric.com/fantasy. meetfabric.com/fantasy. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. All right, Johnny. We're on a Wednesday night right now. Most people will probably be listening to this on Thursday morning, which means we're shortly going to be kicking off Thursday night football. Minnesota Vikings at the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll let you kick us off here. What are you looking for in this game, or what surprised you? Anything from week 1 with either the Vikings or the Eagles?
So first things first, I love this game. I love the high over-under. I love the passing offense on both sides. I think we're going to get a lot of excellent IDP production, a lot of great cornerback production, even though we're missing James Bradberry. And I would not be surprised if the Vikings won this game. No Blankenship, no Bradberry. They're missing some offensive pieces for the Eagles as well. I mean, I know they're loaded, but this feels like a trap game tonight, especially with Thursday night and the shenanigans we get with that. Things that may or may not be interesting. Who is going to be the backup for Blankenship? I'd like to know that. And then, I kind of want to get your thoughts on Jalen Carter's debut as well.
Oh, yeah, man. Jalen Carter, he was our highest graded rookie defender in week 1. The guy was unreal. I think he played 50% of snaps, I want to say. I'll pull it up on the screen here for the YouTube crowd as well. So 50% of snaps, 90.5 pass rush grade. He had a 25% win rate and a 25% pressure rate. Look, I'm excited for Jalen Carter. I mean, there's potential that he could be going off against Ed Ingram, the right guard for the Vikings this week on Thursday Night Football. Ingram had a 42.6 pass blocking grade last year. He gave up 11 sacks and 63 pressures. In week 1, 40.3 pass blocking grade with 4 pressures and a sack allowed. I know Carter's mostly lined up on the left side of the offensive line in week 1, but he moved around enough that matchup could be a problem. So I'm excited to see him on prime time Thursday night against the Vikings O-line. Man, he looked amazing. Looked everything as advertised. I'm excited about him. I think I moved him inside of my top 12 defensive tackles for this week as well. So he showed everything. Definitely looking like a star. So I'm excited for him. And the Eagles too. You mentioned, they're missing players. They're also missing Nakobe Dean as well. So there's they're losing players. They lost a bunch in the offseason and now potentially here in season as well. But Jalen Carter definitely still a star in this group.
Yeah, so I feel like this could definitely be an opportunity for Minnesota to sneak away a win here. And then we've got early waiver wire guys too. How much are
Yeah.
you trusting Christian Ellis this week? There's no way they go to Evans this quick, right?
That's what I was thinking. I think it's Ellis that they play this week. It's a short week. They just brought Rashawn Evans in. Nicholas Morrow, they called him up as well, but Ellis beat him out in the offseason in camp. So I'm not too concerned about Nicholas Morrow. I'm not concerned about Rashawn Evans this week. If you have to, I think you could start Christian Ellis and feel pretty comfortable. I'm avoiding him if I can. I like Zach Cunningham, obviously as the top guy, just because he was the starter last week with Nakobe Dean, and he's probably going to be a clear every down player. But Ellis, he might not be a bad, especially in deeper leagues, right? And he on sleeper, I think he even has a DL tag as well. So that just makes him even more interesting, I think, for this week.
Yeah, good stuff there. And then the last thing that I've seen, the IDP crowd talking about is Jordan Hicks. I believe he was in for like 97% of snaps week one and didn't do much, but it happens, right? It's not, this is more consistent than offensive fantasy, but it's
Mhm.
still not an every week thing. Even linebackers, even inside linebackers that play 97% of snaps are going to have down games. You should not be blasting him out the airlock after one bad week, I don't think.
Yeah, that's the thing with like even I mean the Minnesota defense as a whole is like not ideal for linebackers anyways. We talked about this kind of all off season, right? And Brian Flores kind of coming in and deploying this kind of dime heavy and blitz heavy defense. Surprisingly, it was more zone than man, like much more zone than expected this past week, which I thought was interesting for Brian Flores. So we'll see if that kind of continues, which maybe should help Jordan Hicks's tackle efficiency. But typically, this just hasn't been like a good defense for tackle production with Brian Flores wherever he's been, whether it be in Miami as well. So I don't love Jordan Hicks. Like I think I have him as LB 44, but there's so many. It's only because there's so many other linebackers that are playing similar snaps this year that I pushed him down just because of the defense itself. But I'm still fine starting him as an LB3 in that range. It's really, again, you're not 97% of snaps. The production's going to come. It's just it wasn't a great start to the week, and obviously Ivan Pace coming in and out producing him as well. But I'm not. I love Ivan Pace. I'm not trusting him to start him this week just because of that snap share being at like I think it was 65%, something like that. But yeah, other than that, man, the Vikings defense, we'll see how things go. Their defensive line, the Eagles O line surprisingly kind of struggled in pass protection in week one. They ranked 25th in pass blocking grade. So that was against the Patriots. We'll see if maybe Daniel Hunter can get in on that. But I'm with you. I love this game. I think it's going to be a fun one for Thursday Night Football. Some high flying offense in there. And hopefully we get some nice IDP scoring as well between a lot of the options that we have in this game. But should be a good one. All right, let's go on to the Sunday slate here. Let's start with the Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. So, one of the first things that kind of stands out to me for this game, I mean, obviously Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen, they played every down snaps. So we're not concerned about them or anything. Kyle Hamilton was kind of the one that most people I thought maybe expected more from in week one, but didn't really get it. He only had a few tackles in that game, but decent usage. It wasn't the exact usage that we were kind of hoping for just because he played more than half of his snaps deep. But I think some of that maybe had to do with Marcus Williams' injury, where Hamilton had to kind of backfill there a little bit. And Geno Stone played there as well. But we'll see what they do here against the Bengals, but still decent deployment there for Kyle Hamilton. 27.6% of his snaps in the box, 10.5% in the slot. He got some blitz opportunities in there, and he's really good at that. We saw him get some sacks last year as well. So again, the 100% role is really the main thing, and then we're hoping for the better alignment as things go forward. But I still trust Kyle Hamilton. He's still a top option for me. I'm not panicking after 1 week.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think he can rebound, especially this week. I think since he's going to have a little bit better offensive showing than Houston did last week, so that may help a little bit. What I want to ask you about is our Darius Washington, I believe it is, that appeared to be the replacement for Marcus Williams. If that's the case, do you have any interest as a waiver wire guy?
I think so. I think he was playing more. Let me see. I want to pull up his numbers because I couldn't remember if he was the slot guy, right? Yeah, he was 86% in the slot. So it wasn't like a full-time role. He didn't play 100% of the snaps. So he's kind of interesting. I remember him coming out. We talked about him on another podcast a couple years ago and kind of found him interesting. Really small guy too. So, but an exciting player. I think in deep leagues I'd take a shot on him, but I just kind of worry that again, not that 85 to 90% up roll is not as ideal. But I mean, against the Bengals, who should be passing a ton, it makes it a little bit of a more interesting matchup for me.
Good stuff there. And then we obviously we got the answer finally to the safety situation for the Bengals that's been a little iffy all offseason with Nick Scott and Dax Hill. Yeah, which one's your favorite? I don't have a take yet. They both play a lot. That works for me.
Yeah, they both played basically full-time roles, right? Which is the main thing. And the big question the offseason was who was going to take the Jesse Bates role, who was going to take the Von Bell role. One of those was more primarily deep, the other one a little bit more in the box. So it does look like Nick Scott got more snaps in the box this past week, which was nice to see. Even though Dax Hill, I believe he had more tackles this week, had a better production in week 1, but I mean, this is again like the nature of the safety position, right? The box snaps aren't always going to make them the top safety that week, but Nick Scott, I think going forward, should be the top guy that we're looking to target just for that tackle opportunity snap share that he's getting in the box. So 34.7% for Nick Scott in the box compared to 19.2% in the box for Dax Hill. So I like that. I mean, again, the Ravens team, they talked about being a more pass heavy team this offense this season. We didn't really see that in week 1. So maybe we see it in week 2 if Mark Andrews comes back. But I was kind of surprised that it was mostly the same kind of run heavy defense that we got. So if Nick Scott is getting those box snaps, that kind of helps his potential for production as well. Let's see, what else do we have? Not too much else for this game, really. I mean, Logan Wilson and company, we know the Cincinnati linebackers, what their deployment is. We're starting those guys right. Odafe Owe, I thought was kind of interesting from the Ravens. He had a strong week 1. I think he had 7 pressures, something like that. So 21.2% pressure rate. But most importantly, he led all the Ravens edge defenders in snaps. I think he could have a potentially nice game here. The Ravens are pretty good at generating pressure and creating those sack opportunities. And we saw Joe Burrow kind of get beat up a little bit in week 1 against the Browns. So maybe there's some opportunity there for Owe, who earned a 75.2 pass rush grade in week 1.
Yeah, and I guess I do have one more thing here. So the slight bump Jermaine Pratt saw in snaps in week 1, is that just a weird one-off game script thing, or do you think he's in for a little bit bigger role this season?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like I wonder if they're looking to get, because he played well last year. I think he kind of earned some more playing time there, even though it hasn't been typical of how they deployed these guys. But I think it's one to watch because he did have games last year where he played like up over 90%, and then the next week he'd kind of go back down. So I'm still a little bit tentative like that he might see a bigger role every single week, but he's always been productive with his snaps, right? He's a good tackler, so I like him. I know I've moved him up the rankings a little bit as well because of the role and just based on his past production as well. So yeah, it's one to keep an eye on, but I still like Pratt quite a bit.
Yeah, big same. Good for all 22 as well. So
Yes.
no doubt. Chargers Titans.
Yeah, let's do Chargers Titans. What do you think about this one?
All right. So a couple things. So I just saw this literally before you hit record. Joey Bosa hamstring did not practice today. In other news, water wet, right?
Yeah.
Just shocking. Didn't see that coming.
It's
Uh,
unbelievable.
it really is. We're in mid-season form. No Jamal Adams. Joey Bosa's getting hurt. It's perfect. But that always happens.
Yep.
Harold Landry. What'd you think of the first week back for Titans Harold Landry?
Yeah, I was surprised, I guess not surprised that he played so much because they really haven't shown any fear in just leaning into this guy super heavily. Like 87.7% of the defensive snaps is a crazy number for a defensive lineman. There's only a few of them really that do that, but Tennessee, obviously they're not concerned about re-injury risk or anything with this guy because they just kept him out on the field, and it wasn't like his most productive day at all. I think he only had one tackle or something like that, but if he's gonna be on the field this much, you can't ignore him, right? Like, and he's gonna have his big blow up weeks as well. That tackle production is gonna come up just being on the field too. So I think I have him as edge 18 this week. I just love the usage, and I love the potential there for production. The Chargers, we'll see. I think he should draw the right tackle, Trey Pipkins, who allowed 4 pressures and a sack last week, though he's not actually a bad right tackle or anything, but he's at least no Rashawn Slater, who's the better tackle on the Chargers. So like that for Landry, I've moved him up a little bit this week, and yeah, they're not concerned about the ACL, so neither am I.
Yeah, good stuff there. And in regards to Tennessee linebackers, so definitely there's a bit of panic going on with Aziz. Although I believe he played like 98 or 97% of snaps, and I'm not too worried. I think the production will come with that. Any worries about him or thoughts on Jack Gibbons getting 65-ish? I think it was percent.
Right. Yeah. Jack Gibbons 65 and Aziz Al-Shir 98.5. So I'm still starting Al-Shir over Gibbons every single time. That's just that's too big of a discrepancy in snap share for that production not to kind of come back around in favor of Al-Shir. I think I have him as LB 30. I have Gibbons as LB 56. So this is obviously it was a bad first week, but we're not panicking after week 1. We've seen this way too many times to be concerned about one off week to start the year, especially when the snap share is this high. And there's really no concern about anybody else kind of taking those snaps from him.
Yep. Playing time leads to production. It's that simple with IDP. And then Kenneth Murray saw a lot of snaps in week 1. Is that smoke and mirrors, or what do you think?
So that one, yeah, it was kind of interesting, right? Like Diane Henley, the rookie, is dealing with an injury, but I don't think he would have played ahead of Murray anyways. I think most likely Murray would have had first crack at a starting job, but sorry, I pulled up Alohi Gilman, not the Chargers linebackers. There's Kenneth Murray, 89.6%. So again, he didn't do much. He really hasn't done much as an IDP. Like, he's been a pretty inefficient tackler. So I'm not like overly excited about him in any kind of way. But again, 90% of snaps is a nice snap share. He's going to have good production weeks. So I put him as a waiver wire target this week for those deeper leagues. But he's like LB 46 for me or something like that. But Kendricks is still the guy there. He played 100%. But both guys were very inefficient tacklers in week 1.
Yep. And then, anything else that struck your fancy with these two?
Yeah, so then I did put Gilman on the list here because he had like an 11 tackle game, and people are going to be excited about that. But again, we're looking for those box snaps more than anything to create kind of tackle stability week to week. And he played 73% of his snaps deep against a Miami offense that passed for 450 passing yards or something like that.
Yep.
Plus, Tua had the highest average depth of target in the league last week. So that favors a deep safety like Alohi Gilman. So I'm not trusting that production kind of going into week 2 here. Especially against a Titans team that we're not going to see that much passing from, or that much of that high of a average depth of target either from Ryan Tannehill and company. So I'm much more lower on Alohi Gilman this week. I would advise people not to chase that production.
Yeah, right place, right time. That's all that was.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go on to the Green Bay Packers at the Atlanta Falcons. So I guess the biggest storyline for me, we talked about this in the week 1 preview with Adam, and I said I would have been surprised if Quay Walker overtook Devondre Campbell as the LB1 in Green Bay right away this year. And he did. He absolutely he outsnapped him in week 1 before he got hurt. So that was kind of the main thing that happened there, right? So if you look at the overall snap share, Devondre Campbell 74%, Quay Walker 66%, but Quay Walker got hurt. I think early in the 4th quarter, I think it was, or at the end of the 3rd quarter, something like that. But looking at the snaps just from quarters 1 to 3, Quay Walker played 100% of snaps in that span, while Devondre Campbell was only around 70%. So big difference there. And that, for me at least, signifies that Quay Walker is the linebacker to own in Green Bay right now. So I've moved him up. He's LB13. I know he's questionable. He's got the conky, so we'll see what happens if he actually plays this week. But if he does, I have him over Campbell. Campbell's LB35 for me. So
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And Campbell, last time we saw meaningful week after week snaps out of him, he was not who he used to be either. He had that one like huge game last year that pumped up his numbers, but other than that, he was very quiet all season.
yeah, it was definitely a disappointing year, especially after, I think, what was it, 2021, I guess, when he played with Green Bay. It was his first year, and he was like a top 5 IDP linebacker that year. He was unbelievable, and then he signed that huge deal as well. So yeah, it was a bummer last year, and it could very well be pointing towards that this year, especially if Quay Walker's healthy and he's out snapping him 100 to 70%. So concerning for Devondre Campbell. The other thing, Rashawn Gary, I thought was really interesting because we knew he was going to be on a pitch count coming into this game. He only played 16% of the snaps, so I wasn't concerned about seeing his snap numbers or anything. But what surprised me, I guess, was just how good he looked right away. He only played, I think, 10 pass rush snaps and generated 5 pressures. So so one of those pressures actually came, I believe, from a non-pass rush snap or something. Like, there was something crazy that it ended up not being exactly a 50% pressure rate. So he ended up with over a 55% pressure rate on the game, which is insane for a guy that didn't play that much, and a 44.4% win rate. So if Rashawn Gary gets back to the full workload, I don't expect it to necessarily be week 2, but I think they're building him up to that. This guy was unbelievable before he got hurt the last 2 seasons, and look, he looks right back into the same form. So I'm excited about Rashawn Gary.
Yeah, big same. And then the Van Ness snaps, that kind of stood out to me a little
Right.
bit too. Any thought on that?
Yeah, so that one, I thought maybe he'd play over Kingsley Enagbare, but it was close enough. So, again, this guy's a rookie. I think Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith, eventually they'll be the 1 and 2 there. Enagbare probably pushes Van Ness down a little bit, but I like the way they can use Van Ness. I think they could kick him inside and stuff, and he could be productive still. So still his first year. So I like him for the future, but probably not as high on him for this year.
Yeah, good stuff there. And then just looking at the Atlanta D, which is obviously a little bit improved so far this season. Jesse Bates with the massive game. I did not get a chance to. I've been running around like an idiot trying to get my stuff out the last 3 days, so I have not had a chance to look at his alignment. What did Bates do alignment wise in week 1?
Yeah, so I wish I pulled it up, or at least an image for the YouTube crowd, but I could pull it up to get the exact numbers here, because he's still basically a deep safety, right? He was 80.6% deep. So that's a very deep number. Richie Grant actually had a 46.8% snap share in the box. So really like that for Richie Grant going forward. Atlanta, we'll see. I mean, Jesse Bates, he's always going to have those big blow up games, but it's the tackle production that's always kind of been low for him because he plays so deep. So without those interceptions, we're going to see those numbers, that production numbers, come down, and he'll probably be a little bit boom bust every week, where Richie Grant might be a little bit more stable and consistent, I guess. So yeah, that was crazy. He looked amazing. And look, the Atlanta defense, they kind of surprised me. They played a good game, and look, they look better than last year at least, and even the defensive line was slightly improved, but there's still nobody I really am interested in, at least from that defensive line.
Yep, no, I'm with you on that. Yep.
Yeah, and I think Troy Anderson, linebacker there, is dealing with he's questionable, something like that. I don't know how serious it is, but hopefully he gets back into practice later in the week. It's still early, so it's always hard to tell if these questionables mean anything or if they're worth taking seriously. But him and Caden Ellis both played 100% of snaps, so that was nice to see from the linebacker core.
Yeah, definitely good stuff there. Raiders Bills.
Yes, sir. Let's go Raiders Bills. What do you like here?
All right. So my biggest takeaway from this so far was Spillane. Spillane getting 100% of snaps in week 1. I mean, A lot of us thought this was a good possibility. We saw him as a starter in the latter half of last season in Pittsburgh. We knew he was capable of it, but just right away, 100% of snaps. That's a guy a lot of people don't have, is sitting out there at waivers. That was pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. 8 tackles. I know Divine Diablo also 8 tackles. He basically played an every down role as well at 94%. So like both those guys, but yeah, like look, the playing time was there for Spillane. I was surprised too. I thought Diablo would be their full-time, green dot wearer, all that stuff. But it looks like they trust Spillane, who's never really been a full-time linebacker before. There's been a couple games where the Steelers used him that way, but obviously the Raiders like him a lot. So we got to, adjust to that for IDP, right? So he was definitely a hot waiver target this week, and still like Diablo as well, but I'm just kind of, in the middle, like LB3 range for both of them right now until we see, have a kind of more history of higher tackle production and stuff like that. But yeah, it was definitely a surprise. So, other stuff with the Raiders. What do you think of Nate Hobbs? Because I got him as CB1 this week, and he's been very high in my rankings, my cornerback rankings all off season. How about you?
Oh, you're gonna love this. So he put up 12 combined tackles against a guy that a real stat last year was touchdowns to toilets, right? So they've got the Bills a passing attack in town this week. What do you think he's gonna do this week, right? I love Nate Hobbs. He's great. What do you think about Jacorian Bennett though? 7 solo tackles, 100% of snaps, and he's the lesser of all evils there because you don't want to throw at Peters. Hobbs is obviously pretty good. What do you think about Bennett?
Yeah, that's true. And then look, he faced 5 targets last week as well. So Bennett's an interesting one. Again, look, we play in these cornerback required leagues where we have to start like 2 to 3, sometimes even 4 of these guys. So we love these guys like Jacorian Bennett, who nobody has ever heard of, but we see the snap share, we see the target rate, and we're like, yeah, this is the guy. This is the guy that we're putting in the lineup this week, especially against the Bills, right? So look, if he's going to be on Stephon Diggs, we know Josh Allen is feeding Stephon Diggs no matter what. We'll see. I don't think they're going to Marcus Peters is going to shadow anybody at this point. So there's opportunity there, man. I think it's a nice matchup for these Raiders corners this week.
Yeah, great situation for the Raiders corners this week. And then another thing I saw interesting on the Raiders side of things. So the Chandler Jones fallout, the whole shenanigans with him and the team. Do you think that's the primary reason why we saw 50% snaps on Tyree Wilson in week 1?
Yeah, I think it has to be, right? Like without Chandler Jones there, I think Chandler Jones would have probably been into that like 68 to 75% of snap range, probably around there. And Wilson would have maybe been down around closer to 30 or so. But they basically had no choice. They only got Tyree Wilson, Malcolm Kuntz, and Isaac Rochelle as their other defensive linemen not named Max Crosby. So they had to put these guys out there. And look, Tyree Wilson, we kind of knew going into the season that this is very much a project player. He wouldn't be productive right away, but look, he showed it too. I mean, a 0% win rate and a 4.6% pressure rate on those 50% of snaps. So it wasn't a great debut for him, but the potential for more volume and to kind of get that production up, I think helps. And the more snaps he gets in the NFL for refining his game, it is only for the better. So it'll be nice to see him get more reps and more opportunity to kind of hone his game. But I do still think it'll take time. Tyree Wilson is more a guy for like year 3 for me more than anything. I'm not looking at him for year 1 and 2 because those are the kind of developmental years for defensive linemen, especially ones that don't have that refinement coming out of college. So I'm kind of waiting on Tyree Wilson more than anything.
Yep, good stuff there. And then Buffalo linebackers, that's been a big hot topic this week as well. I don't know about you, but I still prefer Matt Milano.
Yeah. I still prefer Matt Milano. We know he's not losing his job at any point, no matter what, basically, because they don't have anybody unless he gets hurt, obviously. But yeah, I'm ranking Matt Milano higher pretty much every week. Terrell Bernard, he was great. He had a nice, productive game. Matt Milano had the pick, though. Look, he's just a better linebacker overall, has more experience as well. But I like Terrell Bernard. He's going to be a hot waiver pickup this week as well. Now that they've actually finally sorted that situation and we've seen him play 100% of snaps, there was no concern there. So Terrell Bernard, nice LB3 option as well if you can get him.
Yep.
All right. Let's anything else from Raiders Bills, or you want to go to Bears
Oh,
Bucks?
oh yeah. One side note.
Yeah.
I'm adding an X to Max Crosby's name for every sack he gets this year in all my
That's
articles.
amazing. That's amazing. I actually love that. I hope that there's like 14 X's at the end, because that would mean a very nice year for Crosby again, man, because he's amazing. I this guy, what did he, I'll pull up his snapshot.
Oh,
98.4% of snaps. That's unreal. He doesn't leave the field. He had an 85.6 pass rush grade, 25% win rate, 16.7% pressure rate. The guy's amazing. He's locked into your lineup every single week. You never take him out just for that snap share alone. But then he adds in all the pass rush metrics to go with it. So, man, it seems like a long time ago that people were complaining about Max Crosby's production not meeting their expectations, doesn't it?
yeah, ages and ages ago.
Yeah. Oh man. All right, let's go to Bears and Bucks here. So, I mean, the linebacker groups were pretty much as expected. We knew what the Bears were going to be coming into the season. Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Jack Sanborn worked in there as well. Yeah, I was telling you after, like, I think it was, yeah, DraftKings had Jack Sanborn's like over under on tackles at 5.5 last week. So that was an easy smash on the under. Luckily it hit. I parlayed it with like I was telling you, Jelani Tavai, Monty Rice was the other one, Sione Taki, and John Johnson the third. We put all those together and we hit big because nobody knows what to expect in week one unless it's, you know, these like IDP nuts like us who pay attention to this stuff all season. So that was a nice one. And yeah, we're not starting Jack Sanborn and any week, even if he has a few tackles in there. That the snap share is just not what we need it to be for consistent IDP production. There it is. They're 31.7%. So TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, those are the guys. Levante David, Devin White in Tampa Bay, also the guys, even though Levante David also questionable right now, but we'll see what happens there.
I believe he cleared protocol.
Oh, did he? Okay, so good.
Yeah, I was looking right before this, and he had the little note, so I think we're good.
Beautiful. Love that. It's got lots of Levante David again this year. The guy's always cheap in drafts, and you just don't find full-time linebackers like that at going for that kind of cost in drafts. And we don't now have to start a Servassier Dennis or a KJ Britt, so that is also nice. Nothing too interesting for this one, right? The Bears defensive line is still really, really bad. So we're not liking anybody there. Safeties are what they are. Jaquan Brisker's solid. I like him as a top safety still. Anybody else in this game that you want to talk about?
No, not really. It was pretty. These are two stable defenses. It's not like we're talking about the Patriots or the Dolphins or something.
Yeah, exactly. And then Antoine Winfield, maybe the only other person worth mentioning, really. Safety 8 for me this week. Doesn't really matter where the guy lines up. He's been productive. We talked about that last week with Adam too, who loves Antoine Winfield and got decent usage too. 27% in the box, 62% deep, just 6% in the slot, which I thought was interesting since he basically played primarily slot last year. Ryan Neal took most of that work this past week. So we'll see if that changes at all. But yeah, still love Antoine Winfield either way. All right, let's go. Yes, we'll go to the Indianapolis Colts at the Houston Texans. Johnny, what is it that stands out for you in this game?
Yeah, so a couple things I noticed after week one. So Shaq Leonard looks like they're easing him back in with the 86% in week one. EJ Speed getting 40-something% I thought was interesting. Any thoughts on that, or do you think it's just that like an insurance policy? How many teams play 3 linebacker sets these days? Like not many, I would guess.
Yeah, this is another one of those situations, right? Just another team that still plays a decent amount of base linebacker, right? And because Shaq Leonard wasn't full time, he was 85.7% of snaps. That we saw a little bit more EJ Speed, but is usually like a 30% base team. So that's probably what we could expect from EJ Speed if Leonard gets up to a full time role, which hopefully he does, man, because we just have not got the same Shaq Leonard in recent years. We talked about this last week with Adam too. Darius Leonard was much better than Shaq Leonard, and still true here in 2023. So hopefully he turns that around. But yeah, not overly interested in EJ Speed unless Shaq Leonard goes down, obviously, and that would be a huge bump for him.
Yep. So that stuck out a little bit. Obviously, the safety situation over on the Colts. I didn't feel like it was completely settled all off season, but it looks like you were right about it.
Yeah, the box snaps, man. For Julian Blackman, I was shocked because this was a guy that basically never played in the box for the Colts. But look at the numbers here: 51.4% in the box. Rodney Thomas, 94.3% deep. So there was a very clear discrepancy of kind of which guy to trust for IDP. And even if it wasn't like a huge tackle week for Blackman, those are going to come too, because that usage in Gus Bradley's defense, just hammering those safeties into the box, is a beautiful thing. And Julian Blackman's going to be the guy. We just hope that he can at least be an average tackler at best, and he'll rack up some tackles there.
Yep, that was good stuff. And then another thing people are freaking out about this past week here. So Christian Harris, what was it, 60-ish, 65% of snaps? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so I thought we would get maybe two potentially full-time linebackers. I thought Harris maybe would get the slight edge over Perriman, even though I love Perriman, and thought like if it was close enough, Perriman would easily be the better tackler. It was not even close. Perriman 95.3%, Christian Harris 71.9%. Denzel Perriman, we talked about this last week, man. The guy is a tackling machine. He posted a 23% tackle efficiency in week 2 with 14 total tackles on that 95% snap share. He is, to me, he's locked in as a top 10 linebacker right now until something happens where maybe they take his snaps away or something like that. But I'm trusting him every single week in every lineup. And he also got a questionable tag today at some point, and again, hopefully it ends up being nothing. But Christian Harris, yeah, I thought there'd be a bigger role for him there, but I guess D'Amico Ryan's maybe not trusting him as much right now.
Yep. Yeah. And then I guess the only other thing was the Petrie injury with, it sounded super scary initially, but it looks like he'll be okay this week or next.
Yeah, bruised lung or something like that.
Yeah, he's like coughing up blood on the sideline. That's not ideal.
No, you don't want that. I feel like that would definitely probably get you ruled out for the game. So yeah, we'll see if he comes back this week. Because yeah, that obviously people spent like big time draft capital to get Jalen Petrie this offseason. Not me, but people did. So hopefully that pays off for them. But he'll need to be out there for that to happen. Otherwise, Eric Murray was an option who filled in for Jimmy Ward last week. Jimmy Ward probably questionable right now as well, but there's at least a chance that he'll be back. So if Petrie's healthy, Jimmy Ward is healthy, those are the two starting safeties there. Otherwise, Eric Murray is number 3, and I have zero interest in whoever number 4 is.
Oh, it's MJ Stewart.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yep. Same.
Yeah. No, thank you, MJ. We're sorry. All right, let's go to the Kansas City Chiefs at the Jacksonville Jaguars. This one, look, Chris Jones is back. He ended his holdout, which is nice for us DT required folks, because he is like a top 10 defensive tackle for the most part. One of the best pass rushing defensive interior linemen in the league. Not the best tackler, but we want those big plays, and we don't always get them from the DT position. So that'll be nice to see. I haven't like bumped him right up to his usual like top 5 the position just yet. I think I have him as DT 10 just because I want to see if he gets kind of eased in. He basically missed all of training camp and everything, right? So I don't know what the snap share is going to be like for him. So it'll at least be nice that he'll be back and not holding out until week 8 like he had threatened to do.
Yep. Yeah, that was great news. And then obviously McDuffie with the new, whatever you want to call it, role responsibilities just went crazy. But Snead did pretty well too. The only reason Snead didn't like crush his projection is because they're so inflated across all these platforms. Like it in some of the leagues we're in, he was like projected at like 20 something points as a corner, and that's just not realistic.
Yeah, like if they listen to our podcast, the people that make these projections for Yahoo or for wherever, they would know that cornerback production is not as stable year to year. So don't trust that. As good as he was last year, was obviously the clear CB1 in every league. But we'd also seen in the playoffs last year that McDuffie was getting more of that slot role, which is where the production mostly came from Snead. So that helped McDuffie a ton. I moved him up in the rankings because that separation was a little bit clearer, but I'm not moving L'Jarius down significantly. He's still got decent usage. He was getting those blitz attempts as well, lining up on the defensive line and kind of still staying within range of the defensive of the box and everything like that. So still like L'Jarius Sneed, but if I had to pick one, I'm probably still going with McDuffie now.
Yeah, same. He's clearly the number one guy at the moment. Yep.
Nice. Yeah. Anything else for Kansas City? We know what their linebackers are. You're not taking Nick Bolton out of the lineup. Willie Gay is what he is. He's playing that, what was it? 70%. Yeah. 67.6% of snaps. Leo Chanel's LB3 there, which means that Drew Tranquil needs to be removed from all IDP rosters at this point, because he is not going to be playing enough unless there is an injury. But 20% of snaps is not going to do it for me.
Yeah. I mean, we knew that was coming, but I'm sure there were people surprised by it this week. But that was pretty normal. Jacksonville also, Lloyd 100%, Foye 100%, but Lloyd didn't do much. What was up with that?
He literally did nothing. 5.6% tackle efficiency for 4 total tackles, but yeah, I guess the promising thing for Devin Lloyd is that he did play every single snap, because last year we saw what happened with Chad Muma kind of coming in and those guys kind of splitting time a little bit. So there was always that kind of concern coming into this year that could potentially happen again. But it was nice to see that Jacksonville trusted him. It just would have been a lot nicer to see that production be way better than it was, because 5.6% tackle efficiency would put him as one of the most inefficient linebackers in the entire league. So hopefully that picks up a little bit in the weeks ahead.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know we're going to talk Josh Allen here in a second, but I did have a question for you. So Cisco, did he swap roles with Rayshon?
I don't think so. I think Rayshon still played mostly in the box. Yeah, so it was 32% for Jenkins in the box, 21% for Cisco in the box. So it was still pretty, like, it was a little bit closer than what it was last year. But it was still Jenkins being the kind of primary guy to rotate down closer to the line of scrimmage. So again, it was another one of those weeks, right, where Cisco had the better week, but Jenkins, we probably trust a little bit more long term. I think Cisco had like a fumble recovery in there as well, something like that. So that'll always kind of play with it. But nice matchup this week against the Chiefs, obviously, for safeties. So. But yeah, Josh Allen, I mean, you mentioned it, and this is Josh Allen, the one who had 3 sacks last week, not the one who had 3 picks last week. This is Josh Allen, the edge rusher. To me, man, I love Josh Allen. This was a big week. I obviously, we're not going to expect 3 sacks from him every week, but the playing time is there. The pass rush metrics are there. I think he should be another guy that we start to lock into that top 10 of the position if that kind of continues in the weeks ahead, because big fan, and I think this could be a big year for him. All right, we got one more of the 1:00 games here, and that is the Seahawks at the Detroit Lions. We got the Lions on primetime last week, not so much this week against Seattle, but anything for you that you want to start with here for Seattle and Detroit?
Yeah, I mean, fun game. First of all, let's start there. I mean, it's going to be a great game. Brooks eased back into things a little bit here. Wagner got his full playing time. Anything on that?
I guess just that Jordan Brooks was incredibly efficient with his 64% of snaps, right? So he had 11 total tackles, so a 21.2% tackle efficiency, which is unreal. But even Bobby Wagner, 23.5% tackle efficiency. The man put up 19 total tackles on a full-time role, didn't miss a single tackle either. So Bobby Wagner continues to just be incredibly efficient with his opportunities, and being back in Seattle definitely helps, because this is a very linebacker tackle friendly defense here. So I don't know that I'm trusting Jordan Brooks over most options this week, just because I want to see them kind of give him a little bit more snaps before I put him in the lineup, because we could see that kind of come down at any point, and at least the production anyways. We probably expect the snap share to kind of increase here, but I have him, I'd play him over guys like Devin Lloyd and Jordan Hicks and Alex Anzalone, Cole Holcomb, who we'll talk about in a bit, Juwan Bentley, Christian Harris, those kind of guys I would play Jordan Brooks over, but I'm not playing him over any really of the true full-time guys yet.
Yep. No, I'm with you on that, no doubt. Any chance Jamal Adams comes back this week or anytime soon?
It would be nice. It would be nice if he does, because we could stop kind of worrying about him and at least see him on the field, because there's always this kind of, I guess, feeling with Jamal Adams that he could be like a safety one, right? But we don't know it until we see him on the field. And if he does come back this week, I'm not starting him. There's pretty much no league I'm starting him in, just because, again, he's been injured so often. It's been so long since he's been on the field. It could be another one of those guys that they ease back into action. They have Julian Love on the team as well. So I'm not trusting Jamal Adams if he does come back this week, but at least would be a good sign in the right direction that he could potentially get back to that safety one-ish, probably more of a safety two at this point, depending on what the deployment is for him. But yeah, not loving him.
Yep, big same. I ejected years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking at the Lions linebackers though, so yeah, I mean Anzalone getting what was it, 94-ish% of the snaps. That was wild. What I saw though was Derek Barnes getting a decent chunk, and then Campbell getting a less decent chunk. But I think over the course of the season, that kind of reverses itself, right? As Campbell gets more comfortable, he gets more of those snaps, and then eventually becomes like, what do you think? A second full-time inside linebacker, or how's that work?
That's what I'm hoping. I mean, I would be shocked if we don't start to see Campbell get more snaps. Like, he clearly kind of looked like the best Lions linebacker out there already. They invested a first round pick in the guy. He played 39% of snaps, but there were times where he'd be the only guy on the field with Alex Anzalone. And there was even like a drive where it was just him and I think Derek Barnes at the time, and Alex Anzalone was off the field. So they're rotating like crazy over there. Until we see somebody emerge as like a clear, like with a clear, stable role other than Anzalone, I'm not trusting any of them really. I'll play Anzalone in deeper leagues, but yeah, Barnes, Campbell, Rodriguez. Right now, they're basically sit and wait and see, because Campbell's probably the only one that we have any kind of hope for emerging with like a clear LB2 role to start in that defense.
Yeah, no doubt. And then the secondary for the Lions as well. So everyone loved the Brian Branch week 1, and I
Yeah.
did too. Great play, but 68% of snaps in the secondary. Why would you ever settle for that when there's so many guys out there that play 100% of snaps? And beyond that, where is Tracy Walker?
Yeah, Tracy Walker did not play. He he was completely removed from the starting lineup. It was Kirby Joseph and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson that played the typical safety roles, and then yeah, Brian Branch played the slot. And yeah, like you said, he looked good. Brian Branch, I wouldn't be starting him in most leagues. Like, the pick 6 was the thing that everybody got excited about. It doesn't help people that it happened on prime time, right? Because everyone sees it and everyone gets excited about Brian Branch. But he did leave the game for a little bit, so maybe that snap share does get up to maybe 75% range. But there's still, like you said, there's so many corners, there's so many safeties that we can play that have full-time roles and can have more consistent production. So not trusting it yet for Brian Branch, but a nice start to his career at least.
Oh, yeah, great play, helped them win the game, but expecting a pick 6 every week is just insanity.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, all right. Anything else from Lions Seahawks here for you? No. All right, let's go. Before we go on to the 4 o'clock games, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, DraftKings. Football is back in full swing with another week of epic games, and who's got you covered on the action for every single one of them? DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet $5 on football and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Nobody's missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Get in on the NFL Week 2 action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code PFF to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code PFF. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. All right. Let's go on to the rest of the games here. The New York Giants at the Arizona Cardinals. Man, the Giants, it was a bloodbath on Sunday night. There's no other way of saying it. That offense got absolutely destroyed. We'll talk about the Dallas defense in a bit, but man, luckily we're not talking about the Giants offense right now. We're talking about their defense. Start with maybe the linebackers, because I know Bobby Okereke didn't have the game that people were kind of hoping for, but he was still the clear kind of LB1 there for the Lions. So, or for the Giants, I'm sorry. So I'm not too concerned about him. Again, this defense isn't the most ideal for tackle production. Wink Martindale's defense, it's another one of those kind of man-heavy, blitz-heavy schemes that do kind of hurt tackle efficiency a little bit. So just kind of being aware of that. I'm not playing Micah McFadden over Bobby Okereke, even though McFadden had the more productive day. The snap share wasn't really anywhere close. We're trusting Okereke over McFadden, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. It's overreaction, heading into week 2, as is tradition. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? Like it'll all even out.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, the Giants, I mean, I don't know. There's nothing that stands out to me that's too interesting. I think their defensive line will have better days. Obviously, they got too many talented players on that defensive line for them to put up duds like they did in week 1. The safeties, we know it's Xavier McKinney, we know it's Jason Pinnock. So yeah, I guess the Cardinals probably more interesting. Do you want to talk about them instead?
Yeah. I mean, there were a couple people that started Isaiah Simmons after he had a cup of coffee on the Giants and just assumed he was going to have like a full-time role right away. But that's natural consequences. That's what that is.
Yeah, you got to pay attention in the offseason, man. You can't be starting Isaiah Simmons in week 1 on a new team. I wouldn't have even been starting him if he stayed on the Cardinals playing that deep safety role. So yeah, again, it pays to pay attention here. So speaking of the Cardinals, I guess the first thing, Kayvon Wallace was really interesting. He had a nice game. I believe he led the Cardinals in tackles last week. So he didn't have a full-time role, but he had a decent sized snap share in the box at 42%, which I think was nice to see. It was more than any of the other safeties that he played in the box there, even compared to Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson. But I think more importantly is that role for me maybe doesn't make Kayvon Wallace as interesting as it maybe makes Budda Baker less interesting. Because Baker would have taken a lot of those box snaps typically, but now 73% deep in week 1 is a little bit concerning for Budda Baker going forward.
Yeah, definitely, man. And that's the one kind of downside for Budda is it seems like every other offseason they're totally switching up what he does.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah. And I don't blame him for kind of wanting out of there too, because that was the storyline this offseason. But yeah, not ideal for Budda Baker because he was another highly drafted safety for IDP this year. But it is concerning that Kayvon Wallace is kind of coming in there to take those box snaps from him. Zaven Collins was another interesting storyline for the Cardinals this offseason. We he was drafted as an off-ball linebacker. They moved him to edge full time. His first game as an edge defender did not go well, even though he had an interception in the game. That I'm not really counting that towards anything or kept banking on it for the weeks ahead because almost 100% of his snaps were played on the edge. He did drop back into coverage for that interception, but looking at what he did on the edge, he did lead all the Cardinals edge defenders in snaps at 59.2%, but a 0% win rate and a 0% pressure rate for Zaven Collins in his first snaps as an edge defender against kind of an average offensive line there in Washington. So not overly excited about him. How are you feeling about Zaven Collins?
Yeah, he's not Micah Parsons.
Yeah, we've solved the issue there with Zaven Collins. That you cannot just move a first round linebacker to the edge and expect Micah Parsons production. So You hate to see it for Zaven and company, but until we start to see him actually, develop a little bit more of a pass rush repertoire and get those kind of metrics up, we're going to need more from him for sure. So not trusting him. I am trusting Kaiser White. How do you feel about Kaiser White going forward?
Yeah, great playing time, good production in week 1. No real competition for that slot. I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, like literally no competition because it was Kayvon Wallace that coming in from safety playing there a little bit, and Josh Woods only played 55% of the snaps as the LB2. Chris Barnes got in there a little bit as well, but it's basically Kaiser White, and he had a decent tackle game, 10 tackles, so a 14% tackle efficiency, which was nice to see. Hopefully he could keep that up because he was a very cheap draft pick this offseason and could be a nice value for the rest of the year. All right, 49ers at the Los Angeles Rams. What's kind of the first things that you want to talk about in this one?
So Nick Bosa did not play anywhere close to what he's capable of. It's clear that he held out for quite a ways. I would expect that to go up quite a bit. Aaron Donald looked like his old self. The
Yes.
Geno Smith, oh my God, was hilarious.
Yeah, that was the highlight of the weekend for me, man. That was a nice reminder that Aaron Donald is back, and to get that caught on microphone was just incredible because I can't blame Geno Smith for for that reaction. But yeah, the 49ers D-line, man, it is what it is. Like these guys are all studs. You got Nick Bosa there, you got Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead, solid. Drake Jackson potentially now kind of emerging as maybe the edge too. I know Cleveland Farrell played a little bit more than him, but Drake Jackson had a really great game. Obviously had the sacks, but also a 77.7 pass rush grade, 24% win rate, 20% pressure rate. This is a guy that was a second round pick a couple seasons ago and could potentially get up there a little bit. But Nick Bosa will have better days. I'm not too concerned about him. It is an interesting matchup though, because the Rams O-line was surprisingly really good last week. They played 41 pass blocking snaps and only allowed 4 total pressures against the Seahawks. They ended up with the second highest pass blocking grade of the week at 84.8. So Aaron Donald was one of those pressures, obviously the oh my God moment. And but yeah, it was I'm talking about the Rams offensive line, not the Seahawks offensive line. But yes, the I'm already in off-season mode still, but Aaron Donald or the Rams offensive line, for God's sake, it was actually surprisingly good last week is basically what I'm trying to say as I, stumble my words and hopefully could mix in a water here at some point. But yeah, man, it should be an interesting matchup. They're facing a much tougher defensive line this week in the 49ers with Bosa, Armstead, Hargrave, Drake Jackson now kind of emerging. So we'll see if that Rams O-line is real or if it's, Fugazi production. We'll see.
Yeah, I got a feeling it's the second one. I've seen a lot of people this week grabbing themselves some Puka Nukas and all these discount wide receivers for the Rams, and I got a feeling against the 49ers it's all going to come crashing back down to earth.
It very well could, man. I'm only going to be referring to Puka Nacua now as Puka Nuka.
Oh man,
that's amazing, man.
that shows you my interest level. But yeah, Rams safeties. Russ Yeast, right? Like what? John Johnson couldn't reclaim the job.
I guess not. It looked like maybe in the preseason that John Johnson was going to get there, but right up until the last minute, they basically changed their mind. John Johnson, it wasn't hurt or anything because he played on special teams. So Russ East, yeah, he's the guy that's starting next to Jordan Fuller, but Fuller had the more ideal role, 30% snaps in the box. Yeast just 14%. So not overly interested in Russ Yeast for the rest of the season, but I will take some Jordan Fuller shots for sure. And then, the other thing, Aaron Donald and friends basically is what we're going to refer to this defensive line as, because it's basically him and nobody else, even though Michael Hecht or Hoyt or however you say it and Byron Young, they played a ton. So that was at least a positive for them. 92% of snaps for Michael Hecht or whatever, and Byron Young, 84%. So not like amazing pass rush metrics, although it was a decent first game for them. Any interest in these guys as maybe volume plays, at least for deeper
Yeah.
leagues?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone has value. It just
Mhm.
depends, what the league is, how deep you want to go, and we go pretty degenerate. So
Yeah.
I'm sure I could find a place for these guys. And I'm telling you, the way this injury stuff is going so far, 1 week into the season, in a month, we're gonna take a look at these volume guys that
Mhm.
don't do much and be like, oh, that looks so good. Give me some Michael, whatever. Right now. So, it's gonna look good. I was
Yeah.
telling someone that today. Someone was telling me that they want to airlock Jamin Davis, and I was like, I wouldn't do that just yet, my friend. You may need him here shortly.
Yeah, that's always the thing, right? Like the production is one thing, but it's nice to know that we could kind of fall back on that volume if it's there, for especially like playing next to Aaron Donald only helps guys. Maybe he lets them eat some scraps from him collapsing the pocket every single snap, which is nice as well. We've seen that production pay off for other edge defenders with the Rams that have played with Donald. So guys like this that are going to play a ton, you're better off trying to grab one of these guys than maybe like the next man up if one of your starting edges gets hurt, right? So instead of, if Chase Young goes down, you don't have to go after James Smith Williams, for example. You can go after one of these guys here on the Rams who's playing a little bit more and could potentially fall into production there because he plays with Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
All right. Let's we hinted at it before. The New York Jets now playing the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys, let's start with the defensive line, man, because that was truly one of the bigger mismatches that we're probably going to see all year, even though this week could potentially be another one for the Cowboys defensive line, because man, everybody ate against that Giants offensive line last week. Dallas was the number one graded pass rush unit. They were number one in pressure rate. They were number one in quick pressure rate. They absolutely destroyed the Giants O line. I know the Giants O line wasn't highly regarded coming into the season, but this was like men against boys here, and it definitely showed on Sunday Night Football. This week, both tackles for the Jets are questionable, Dwayne Brown and Mekhi Becton, although they both played last game, so we'll see. Hopefully they play this week. But they weren't like overly impressive in week one. Then you add in Zach Wilson back there now. I think we could see another bloodbath here from the Cowboys pass rush.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of, I mean, it's not great for anyone that Rodgers went out. It hurts everything
Yeah.
across the board. But I feel like this game went from a possible, good offensive output, entertaining back and forth game to this is just going to be a knife fight now.
Yeah.
Like it is not going to be pretty because that Jets defense is incredibly good
Yeah.
too. We might end up with like a 10-7 type deal or something.
Yeah, I love that Jets defense, man. They were the only reason that they won that game. They kept them in it, and obviously the kick return. So the defense and special teams for the Jets, and I don't know how much they'll come through to help them for the entire season to maybe push for a playoff spot or anything like that, like they were hoping. But they should keep them in games, like you said. This could be a very well a close one. But speaking of that Jets defense, the defensive line was interesting without Carl Lawson there. Carl Lawson led the edge group last year in snaps for the Jets, but he was out in this game. I don't know if he's going to be out or not for week 2. It feels like it's possible. So Jermaine Johnson was the guy who actually came in and led the group in snaps, and he was a first round pick from a couple years ago. 71% of the snaps for Jermaine Johnson. Didn't have like overly impressive pass rush metrics, just a 59.2 pass rush grade, 8% win rate, 8% pressure rate. But we've been talking about it, right? The volume is the big thing, and especially playing on a defensive line like that, it could create opportunities. Obviously, Quinnen Williams being the guy there that plays the Aaron Donald role. Jermaine Johnson could be one of those kind of Michael Hecht, Byron Young with better draft capital guys.
Yeah, grabbed a ton of Jermaine Johnson this past offseason. Love that right there. And then on the Dallas defensive line, just a whole bunch of rotation, but Dorrance Armstrong getting it done with far less than ideal playing time. And Ziggy Zua too. Like there were guys everyone ate, like you said. It was just wild.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then I think the snap share probably a little weird for this game because it was such a blowout that the Giants, they weren't in the game. So, and Dallas already had sealed it basically. So they were putting in the backups a little bit more. So I think Durance Armstrong could see some more snaps going forward. DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons, all those guys in tougher games. I think we could see higher snap share for them.
Yeah, good call there. And then the Dallas safety situation too. I don't think we got an accurate read on that without Donovan Wilson.
Right.
Plus, the game was over, like you said, by halftime essentially. But I'm just assuming we're gonna get what we got last year with the Dallas safeties, where no one gets 100%. It's like 80, 75, 60 or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that makes the most sense once Donovan Wilson's back in the lineup and when they're in regular games and not winning 44-0 or whatever it was. But yeah, I still like Jaron Curse. He has the ideal deployment there. Look, he played 76% of the snaps in a blowout and played 43% of them in the box, which is a really nice number. So still like Jaron Curse. People were going after Marquise Bell this week because of the production. I think he led the team in tackles or was close to it. I can't remember, but he had a really productive game, but only 44% of the snaps. I know he played 94% of them in the box or whatever it was. But again, once Donovan Wilson's back, I don't think we're seeing much Marquise Bell.
Yeah, they were missing a couple guys in the secondary, Jordan Lewis and Donovan Wilson. So there were guys that won't be there normally getting some good playing time last week. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense, man. Anything else from Dallas and the Jets?
No, pretty par for the course beyond that. Quincy Williams got a little bump up to 100% of snaps. That was nice.
That's right. Yeah, he was typically like kind of an 80% guy, so that was definitely nice to see, and it created some nice production could create some nice production for him going forward too. So definitely another one to monitor there. Hopefully that sticks because we do want more full-time linebackers. That's obviously nice for IDP purposes. All right, let's go to the Washington Commanders at the Denver Broncos. What do you want to go start with in this one?
Oh, the thing everyone's freaking out about. So Cody Barton, 100% of snaps. Jamin Davis, 65. What is going on there?
That's crazy, man. Yeah. I was not expecting this. I had Jamin Davis pegged as like a breakout candidate this year. I thought he was going to play that full-time role. He played that role well when Cole Holcomb went out last year. I thought, they spent the first round pick on this guy. They're going to trust him. They did not. 64.5% of snaps, like you said. Really, really disappointing. Cody Barton took 100%. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about Cody Barton. This was a guy that really was never a full-time player. He got an opportunity last year in Seattle, but also lost snaps because of poor performance last year as well. So I don't know how much to trust Cody Barton going forward, or that, maybe there's something going on here with Jamin Davis, but very concerning. Obviously, Jamin Davis had some off-field issues as well. Maybe there's something to do with that as well, in the playing time. But one to monitor because it just really surprised by this. But I'm not trusting Jamin Davis this week. That's for sure after seeing what this was. So even though he led the team in tackles, I could hold him, but I'm probably starting other options if I have them.
Yep, I'm right there with you. And yep, just one to keep your eye on, no doubt. Cam Curl, huge week. What was his usage like? I assume it was pretty good.
Oh yeah. He's always got the ideal usage. This guy. This is why we love Cam Curl all off season. I had him as safety 3 coming into the year. 47% of snaps in the box. Played a full-time role at 100%. 26% in the slot as well, and just 21% deep, which is amazing for a safety because it just means they're closer to the line of scrimmage on more than 3/4 of their snaps, which is beautiful to see. And that's why he had such a productive tackle day with 10 tackles on the day. So continuing to lock Cameron Curl into lineups for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Great move there. And then on the Denver linebackers, Singleton with a little bit of a bump, and then Josie Jewell with a little ding, down from 100 to 90.
Yeah, Josie Jewell, I thought he'd be a full-time player as well. It's close, 90 something, whatever it was, I think 95%, something like that. But I think the main thing for me is Singleton going from like a 75% player to 90%. we know how efficient this guy is with tackles when he's on the field. We call him Kingleton for a reason, because he is the tackle king. And if he's going to be getting 90% of snaps each week, that's better than 100% of snaps for a lot of linebackers. So he'll have some big tackle games because of it. I think he had like 320 tackle games last year, which is unreal. So he's going to be somebody that I move up the rankings as well, as long as we continue to see that 90% snap range, because man, we there's been nobody more productive as a tackler than Alex Singleton the last couple of years.
Yeah, no doubt. I said this the other day on a different podcast. It's like with that extra 10 or 15% over the course of like, what is it, 8, 9 games? That's like an extra game worth of production for him.
Yeah. When I pulled the tackles versus expected numbers this offseason, his were like unreal. He was plus 54 tackles over expected because he had played, which was by like far and away like more than anybody in the league, right? It's just a ridiculous number to think of. But when you think that he played like 70% of snaps, something like that, and was still putting up better tackle production than guys that were putting up 100% of snaps, and he played the whole season, it's unreal to think about. If he gets that 90% snap share and continues that efficiency, he could be one of the league's leading tacklers by the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And then any thoughts on the Denver defensive line? They got some new a new piece or two in the offseason. How'd that all shake out?
Yeah, so they brought over Frank Clark, right? Who we've never really been like a big fan of, unless it's the playoffs. He usually has a couple big games in the playoffs, but during the regular season, Frank Clark, he is what he is. He's never been overly exciting, but he was third in the rotation. He was playing behind Jonathan Cooper and Randy Gregory. Clark, for me, he wasn't that useful when he was at the top of the rotation, so I'm not into him as the third option in the rotation. But Randy Gregory, kind of interesting just for playing time purposes. He's flashed as like a really good pass rusher before, but he was always kind of used situationally, so he had a really low production floor. It was nice to see him get some more work against the run this past week, but I think he had a 0% win rate and a 0% pressure rate somehow. So we'll hopefully could only go up from there for Randy Gregory. But how about you? Anybody that you like in that group?
No, I think what's his face? The guy from the Cardinals got moved to defensive
Oh,
tackle.
Zach Allen. Yeah.
Zach Allen, yeah, which is great. To get him as a defensive tackle. Yeah.
He's going to be that interior guy there, which is nice. And we need more of these productive guys at the defensive tackle position. We're getting more of them slowly but surely, but any more that we can get is nice to see, especially in our 2 DT required leagues that we play in, because that gets thin pretty quickly. All right, let's go to Miami, New England here. And I guess the first thing, man, Jalen Phillips, really, to me, this guy was just unreal. He's another one of those guys. Look, 90% snap share. He's not leaving the field, and he has the pass rush metrics to go with it. He didn't have like an amazing pass rush grade this past week, 65.8, but 13.5% win rate, 18.9% pressure rate for Jalen Phillips. And to me, he's a locked in top 10 edge at this point. He showed it last year that he has the pass rush ability. And with a new defensive coordinator, they're still not taking him off the field. So that's what you want to see from Jalen Phillips. And he's going to get those sacks. And obviously he had the big one to close out week 1 as well, which was really cool.
Yeah, I believe he had a ton of tackles in week 1 as well.
I think he had 11 tackles, something.
Right. Yeah, just a monster game. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talk about snaps being important for these defensive linemen. It's because of production like that, where they being on the field and racking up that tackle floor is really nice. And then once they add sacks on top of that, it just makes for huge weeks. So we love Jalen Phillips for that, obviously. But what did you think about the Miami linebackers? Were you surprised at their usage at all?
Yeah, Jerome Baker like a zombie crawling out of the ground, and people with all the David Long shares just losing their minds. Yeah.
Yeah, this is crazy. 100% for Jerome Baker, which, okay, it's fine. We expected him to have a starting role, right? But David Long, 21.3%. I couldn't find anything like injury related on this or why he played so few snaps. He only posted 1 tackle on the day, but they were using Andrew Van Ginkel inside linebacker, but only 64%. So really strange usage there. I don't know why David Long saw such a small snap share, especially considering they brought him in as a free agent and paid him. I mean, this just feels like a kind of a waste.
Yeah, it was very strange. That did not make a lot of sense. We'll just have to see how it goes. What did you think of Jafond Holland's usage in week 1 though? That improved a little bit, I think, right?
It did, yeah. Only 50% deep, which was a big improvement because he was playing almost primarily deep in the previous system and got used a little bit more in the box, 27.5%, more in the slot, 22.5%, and he had a nice game because of it. So I'm much higher on Javon Holland now than I was kind of going into the year because that usage is most likely going to be, in Vic Fangio's defense a little bit more I guess ideal for him than it was previously, where there was like one clear deep safety and it was pretty much always him. So this was nice to see for Holland for sure.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And then on the Patriots side of things, Duggar finally landing at 100% of snaps. The heir apparent to Devin McCourty as a full-time player for Belichick, which is rare. We'll talk about Jabril here in a second, but I got to ask you, what is up with Christian Gonzalez playing 100% of snaps as a rookie corner for Bill Belichick in week 1? That blew my mind.
Yeah, I'm trying not to jinx it, right, by adding too much Christian Gonzalez in all my leagues because we know Belichick is going to pull the rug out from under us at some point, right? We've just seen it too many times, but really nice usage there for the rookie. He had the sack as well, which was cool to see. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it continues, but we've seen New England's defense too many times to not get too excited after just the one game, but it was encouraging at least.
Yeah, no doubt. Great matchup this week too with Miami coming to town.
Yes.
But is Peppers back? Is this a thing again?
Oh man, I guess so, right? Like I thought Adrian Phillips would be maybe safety too there, but Jabril Peppers has emerged with an 88% snap share, decent usage in the box. But yeah, I guess I would play him in deeper leagues. But Kyle Duggar is really the one for me, right? I mean, this is only the second time in his career that he got a 100% snap share, but I do think that can stick for him. He's one of the best defensive players on the team, and now with Devin McCourty gone, he kind of backfills a little bit in that deep safety spot instead of coming off the field, which makes a big difference, right? Even though he's playing deep safety, at least he's on the field and has that potential for production, especially this week going against Miami, who, like we just said, with Alohi Gilman, putting up 11 tackles against that high average depth of target team and high passing volume team. I think it could be a huge week for Kyle Duggar here in week 2, but very excited for him. I had him as like a bounce back candidate after last year, just based on production, not overall performance. Patriots fans were telling me his usage wasn't going to change at all, but looks like it did after 1 week. So we're not going to, rub it in or anything like that, especially because it's only 1 week. And again, it's the Patriots, but this was kind of what we expected this offseason with Devin McCourty retiring is a bigger role for Kyle Duggar.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Hopefully some of this stuff sticks because I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I am streaming Christian Gonzalez in a few places this week, and I'm ready to be hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna see. But yeah, hopefully it sticks, man, because yeah, there's a lot of potential there facing Miami. So excited for that game for sure. All right, let's go on to the primetime games here. Sunday night football, New Orleans Saints at the Carolina Panthers, Johnny. I had to check twice that this was the Sunday night football game. I was surprised that this is the one that they put in there in week 2, but I guess the number 1 overall pick and the Saints being what they are is something to kind of tune in for, but not the most exciting offenses. So what do you like about the defenses in this one?
On the Saints side of things, Carl Granderson, man, the one that is promised, showed up big in week 1, got the playing time. I like that quite a bit. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I love that one. Adam and I talked about it going into last week that we love the matchup for Granderson and even for Cam Jordan. They both delivered with a sack each, or I think Granderson had a 1.5 as well. So he's the guy for me that I'm having in my rankings, even over Cameron Jordan. Even if the playing time is more in favor of Cameron Jordan, he's getting up there in age, and the pass rush metrics just haven't been the same. So it's been a little bit inconsistent with Cameron Jordan over the past few years. But the playing time is still nice for him. But Granderson getting 75% of snaps. That Marcus Davenport wasn't getting the 75% snap share last year, right? So they're trusting him to play that many snaps is nice, and especially with the pass rush metrics being what they are: 81.3 pass rush grade, 21% win rate, 18% pressure rate for Carl Granderson. Really like him, and could have a nice game again this week. He's somebody worth starting, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And then linebacker wise, very solid across the board here. Werner got the bump up to 100%. DeMario always gets the 100%. Shaq Thompson always gets the 100%. Luvu stayed at 100%. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I didn't think it would dip too far from that with a new defensive coordinator, but I was at least wanting to kind of see it first, right? And so that it was nice to see that he kind of stayed at that 100% range, because he was another guy that I think people spent a high draft capital on this offseason. I couldn't get a lot of him because of his costs. So nice to see for those people that spent up to get Frankie Luvu, and he'll have some pretty strong production days because of it, because he has that pass rush ability too. So cool to see for the Panthers linebackers.
Yep, that was good stuff. And then the big one here, Jeremy Chin, what was it, 73%, something like that?
Yeah, 73% of snaps. So we talked about it. We weren't starting Jeremy Chin in week one. We saw the usage in the preseason, even if it wasn't going to be, even if it was a smokescreen for how they were going to use him in the regular season, it still wasn't worth betting on. Just being so many full-time safeties like we've been talking about, I wasn't starting Jeremy Chin in week one. I'm still not starting him after this. 72.5% of snaps. You know, deep leagues, I could play him just because he's got decent usage in the box. But for most leagues that are starting like one or two safeties, there's no chance Jeremy Chin sniffing a starting lineup for me. It's just we want that 100% snap roll, and he's clearly not getting it.
Yep, I'm with you there, absolutely. And then Burns, a little bit of a bump, 96% of snaps, and Derek Brown, 96% of snaps.
Oh man, yeah, that was nice to see for sure. Because Derek Brown, I think he had only one sack all of last year. So he at least was able to match his entire 2022 total after this first week. And he showed like decent pass rush metrics last year. He had like 40 something pressures as well. So he was better than what the sack numbers said. So it was nice to see him kind of get off to a good start. And I think he's another strong defensive tackle to rely on in those DT required leagues. But yeah, Brian Burns looked good, man. There was question that he might hold out and things like that, but 1.5 sacks and the metrics were all there that we'd expect from Brian Burns. So you're starting him pretty much every week as well. All right, let us roll to the final game, Monday Night Football. This should be fun. It usually is. The Cleveland Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's actually a decent amount to kind of sort out for this game. So maybe we start with because they both have complete messes at the linebacker position, right? It's a rotational mess for both teams. So we'll start with Cleveland, I guess. Man, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah finally gets the lead snap roll, but it's a 77% snap share. So far from ideal. Only put up 3 total tackles, a 7% tackle efficiency. These guys were all incredibly inefficient with their touches. Even Sione Takitaki, who played 41%, 13% is just average tackle efficiency. But we're not trusting Takitaki in any leagues, really. We're not trusting Anthony Walker at less than 60%. JOK is not getting played outside of really the deepest of leagues at this point either. So do you trust anybody on the Cleveland Browns linebacker core to play in any of your leagues this week?
Nope. No, I mean, we're yes, we are in those deep, deep, deep degenerate leagues where you're starting 4 actual linebackers, 2 IDP flexes, etc. As my 6th linebacker, sure.
Mhm.
But for most non-insane people, you're not starting him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. You just can't do it. And plus that defense too, a very man-heavy defense, so it's not ideal for tackle efficiency, and that kind of showed in week 1 there. So staying away from the Browns linebackers as usual. Didn't matter that a new defensive coordinator came in, unfortunately. We'll stick in Cleveland before going to Pittsburgh here, but Grant Delpit, I think, is somebody that we love because he did get the ideal usage, right? 98.2% of snaps, so an every down role for him, but 36.4% in the box, 27% in the slot, just 36% deep. Talked about him this offseason that, Jim Schwartz was coming in, potentially going to deploy more single high looks and would be good for Grant Delpit. It turned out to be good for Grant Delpit in week 1. So hopefully that continues. Do you like Grant Delpit in your lineups this week?
I love Grant Delpit. I have so much Grant Delpit and Richie Grant. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
The Grant brothers. That's perfect.
The Grant brothers, the guys that get those box and slot
Oh
snaps.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we absolutely love those guys. They don't have necessarily like the cachet names or anything like that people are attracted to in drafts, but we know who we're targeting. We know what we want, and those guys have it. We want to target those box snaps. So Grant Delpit, Richie Grant, absolutely great values all off season, and yeah, Delpit especially, man. He's been somebody that I scooped up a ton of. So nice to see a strong start from him. The Cleveland defensive line was no joke
Whew.
either. Holy man, they absolutely smoked Cincinnati, and making things pretty scary for Pittsburgh because the Steelers were the lowest graded pass blocking team last week. Somehow even worse than the Giants. It wasn't by much, but this could be a big game for Cleveland. Their defensive line again, guys like Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, even Dalvin Tomlinson and Obo Okoronkwo. These guys could absolutely destroy Pittsburgh's offensive line this week.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
It should be fun. We always love to see that. Oh god. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's go to that, man, because we hinted at the rotational mess at linebacker. I was worried about this when Cole Holcomb signed with the Steelers that he wouldn't be a full-time guy. I know that he had a decent contract, so I didn't get too disturbed by it, and it was just always kind of in the back of my mind. And I talked about it this off season. I got a little bit more comfortable with him as a potential full-time guy as the season got closer. And of course, as soon as I got comfortable, the Steelers said, go, F yourself, and they went with the 78% snap share. Quan Alexander less than 70%, Landon Roberts at 42%. Like this is not ideal for anyone.
Yeah, absolute mess. Absolute mess. Quan Alexander just doing what he always does, going to a team and just jamming up their linebacker core.
He did. He jammed it up. He's got people all confused because he got 10 tackles. Cole Holcomb only had 5, right? So people are, do I start Quan Alexander over Cole Holcomb? It's like, hopefully you got better options over both of those guys. But no, I would not start Quan Alexander over Cole Holcomb. But I'm avoiding Cole Holcomb where I can until we see a couple weeks now of better than 90%, because this is not going to be good. If the Steelers do what they did last year with their linebackers, which was like a situational kind of rotational absolute mess.
Yeah, it definitely was. And then also the second safety situation for Pittsburgh. And Minka didn't do much either as the first safety, so that doesn't help things. But yeah, the second safety, KZ and Neal, just what is up with that?
Yeah, this was they showed this in the preseason too, where they didn't have a second full-time guy. So I thought maybe they were still kind of working out the kinks before week 1 and that somebody would emerge as a clear every down starter. But this was the exact same preseason usage that we got. It was KZ 72%, Keanu Neal at just under 50%, and Minka Fitzpatrick as the clear every down starter. So another group of safeties that we're not in love with. I'll trust Minka Fitzpatrick. We know what he can do. He'll have those big games. He'll also have some dud games in there too, but not trusting any of the other safeties until they show it for us.
Yep, I'm with you on that.
All right, man. Anything else from the Monday Night Football slate here?
No, not really. Be a good game. Should be a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's nice to see TJ Watt tearing it up as well. So that could make Miles Garrett versus TJ Watt a fun one. But that's
Oh,
going to do it. Oh, go
oh,
ahead. Go, go, go.
sorry. I did have one thing. Cameron Hayward.
Right.
We're not touching any backups on this, are we?
I'm probably not. If I have to, if it's a deep league, it's probably Larry Ogunjobi. But I'm not excited about it. It is a position. There's nobody really there that's kind of proven it for production. And Ogunjobi, he had in the past, but it's been a long time since he's been like a reliable IDP starter, right? So he's probably the first one. Keanu Benton had a really nice game as a rookie. He could be interesting, maybe, but not trusting him for week 2 at all. All right, that's going to do it here for the week 2 IDP preview here on the PFF Fantasy Podcast. I appreciate you all tuning in, and hopefully we helped you get ready for the week ahead so you can dominate your IDP leagues. Johnny, a huge thank you to you, my man. I had a blast. Always a pleasure getting to talk to you. So thank you very, very much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Always glad to do this. We always have a good time, and we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. And before you go, please let the people know where they can find you and your work.
Yep. So I'm doing the cornerback corner over at the IDPshow.com. I am doing a weekly, very similar kind of waivers and reactions and advice podcast with Gary, IDP tipster on the SGPN network. And I've got IDP strategy articles going back a half decade at idpguys.org. So go check that out.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely check out Johnny's work, man. He's one of the best, and he definitely has all the advice that you could ask for in those articles. So be sure to follow him at OrangeMan3142 on the Twitter as well to stay up to date with all that stuff. As for me, everything I write can be found on pff.com. We got the IDP Fantasy Report out there now. It is free here in week 1. I don't know if it's going to be free going forward. That's not up to me, but definitely check it out for all those snap shares. If you were watching on the YouTube, the snap shares and everything, the breakdowns, those are all from the IDP Fantasy Report. Everything you need in there as well. IDP rankings coming up tomorrow, which is Thursday. Offensive line, defensive line matchups to target and avoid will be up Friday. We also all have the wide receivers performance versus man and zone coverages report. That'll come out on Thursday as well. Lots of stuff to check out on pff.com. And I will be back again tomorrow with Kate Majduk to preview week 2 on the offensive side of things. And Joey the Tooth is going to be on with me to preview week 3 of IDP with me next week. So hope you'll all tune into that. And until then, peace out.